In a world of countless controversies, especially when regarding the environment, it can be confusing to understand the truth of climate change. The Global Commons and Climate Change, brought to you by Matthew Chaw, based on non-fictional works of USAD. Introduction. The Earth likes a stable climate. Well, obviously. Well, what is a stable climate? A stable climate is one that can find a sort of equilibrium, one of balanced incoming and outgoing energy. But where does the Earth get energy? Well, the Sun. As the Sun sends energy to the Earth, even though about a third of the energy gets deflected by the clouds, the atmosphere, and the crust, the Earth gets warmed up and cozy and happy. Eventually, this energy is sent back into space. The atmosphere and its properties. Remember the atmosphere stuff? Well, what exactly is it made out of? Nitrogen and oxygen gas make up the majority of it, 78 and 21% respectively. The other remaining 1% is mostly argon. However, mixed in there is a very small but very important mix of gases called the greenhouse gases. These gases are responsible for what people call the greenhouse effect. You know, the one where the sun's energy that goes to the Earth can't escape the atmosphere because of the gases in the atmosphere surrounding the Earth, which block the rays from leaving, which is making the climate rise, the ice caps melt, polar bears die, and inspiring countless disastrous movies that try to persuade the audience that becoming more green is the way to go, or humanity will face the consequences of their actions. Yeah, those gases. Well, why do these gases have this dramatic effect? In reality, greenhouse gases are mostly transparent. However, they do absorb just a little bit of energy and then eventually release it, kind of like the Earth. However, while the energy goes directly upward from the Earth, so when the sun's energy hits the Earth, it bounces right back up, the ones that go into the greenhouse gases kind of get trapped in there, and when they get released, they go in all directions, including back downwards into the Earth. In a way, this causes the energy in the Earth sent from the sun to kind of be stuck there, thus increasing the temperature. However, greenhouse gases aren't all that bad. In certain quantities, greenhouse gases help maintain temperatures. Like the average temperature on Earth is 58 degrees Fahrenheit, which would only be possible with the greenhouse gases. With more greenhouse gases, plants will have more higher temperatures. For example, on Mars, the average temperature is about 80 because they have more greenhouse gases. On Venus, with a lot more, they have about an average temperature of 890 degrees Fahrenheit. The most common greenhouse gases are carbon dioxide and water vapor. Other notable gases are CH4, methane, N3O, nitrous oxide, and ozone O3. But really the most important is carbon dioxide, especially in our day-to-day. Therefore, when we increase the production of these gases, we increase the greenhouse effect and then increase the temperature. We've increased the CO2 in the world by 35% since the Industrial Revolution, and on average we produce 25 billion tons of CO2 a year. In 2010, we hit 31.2 billion, and we're expected to reach 45.5 billion by the year 2040. And this is mainly due to the industrialization of current-day developing countries. According to USAD, there isn't really a debate for climate change. However, the argument is really how accurate people are in predicting said climate change. This leads us to our next subject, international cooperation. Well, who exactly makes these calculations? In 1988, the UN gave birth to the IPCC, or the International Panel on Climate Change, to help find global statistics for the controversies about the changing atmosphere. Currently, it boasts about 195 countries as official numbers. An important fact is that they find statistics, not make them. They develop reports from existing documents and studies and primarily review the research. To understand how scientists really deal with climate change, you need to know two important terms: mitigation and adaptation. Mitigation is reducing or straight up eliminating the causes of climate change, like greenhouse gases. For example, if you have a factory that's making a lot of CO2, cutting the CO2 production would be directly destroying or hurting the causes of climate change. On the other hand, adaptation is trying to minimize the impacts of climate change, like building large seawalls to protect property. So mitigation is hitting the roots of the problem, while adaptation is changing or adapting to try to defend yourself from the changing environments. It's really the difference between attacking the problem of climate change versus defending yourself from its effects. In addition to the IPCC, or the International Panel on Climate Change, the UN also created the UNFCCC, or the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. Now, it's a little bit of a handful to memorize, but bear with me. Their idea is very simple. It focuses on the treaties between nations to help climate change. So essentially, it's a more political system to have more countries unite together towards a common goal of helping the climate. It currently has 194 members. Its original primary goal is pretty broad. I mean, just treaties to help the climate. But this broadness is useful in that because it's so broad, it can also focus on certain subjects, using treaties and agreements later made, for example, the Kyoto Protocol, but that's something I'll talk about in a little bit. One of the most important things about the UNFCCC is that it believes the Common but Differentiated Responsibility, or CBDR. So what is the Common but Differentiated Responsibility even mean? Well, let's break it down. It's basically an understanding that, number one, developed countries emit a lot of greenhouse gases, and that's understood. And the other one is that developed countries need to develop and therefore industrialize and therefore produce greenhouse gases in order to be economically competitive. Under these two facts, the CBDR recognizes that climate change is everybody's fault, but maybe more the fault of developed countries. I'm looking at you, America and China, and they should probably take more responsibility than, let's say, Ethiopia. So, the last subject we're going to hit is, as I mentioned before, the Kyoto Protocol. Dum, dum, dum. So, the UNFCCC, or the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, just in case you guys forgot what the acronym meant, created the Kyoto Protocol in December 11th, 1997, in a very specific location on Earth. Now, guess where that place was? Seriously, guess. It was in Kyoto, Japan. Congratulations. It is a specific and binding commitment to reduce greenhouse emissions. So essentially mitigation, in that the countries that are involved in the UNFCCC are required to each country, depending on how large they are, to cut their use of GHGs, or greenhouse gases, by a certain percentage, by a certain time frame. Essentially, remember how I said that the UNFCCC was very broad and that their goal was just to make treaties for multiple countries to work together in cooperation to reduce or to help the climate? The Kyoto Protocol was essentially their way of making the members make certain goals by a certain time frame. To keep things fair, under the Kyoto Protocol, they created two groups for the countries to be put into. But they don't call them groups, they call them annexes because I guess USAD wants to fail us. Essentially, Annex 1 is made for more developed countries, think Europe or Canada. The second annex is for not really underdeveloped countries, but for everyone else, think more second, third world countries, because they also include India and China, two major players. But there's one really large flaw with the Kyoto Protocol, and like World War I and the creation of the League of Nations, the United States decided not to participate. Now, it's extremely controversial on why they did not want to participate in the Kyoto Protocol, while most of the other countries of the world have been playing to their rules. This is really just one of the things that the United States didn't want to do, mainly for economic reasons and also to stay politically uninvolved with other countries. Well, that's all for today, folks. I hope you learned something today, and if you need to, please feel free to watch this video again just to get any knowledge you might have let slip past. Matthew Chaw signing out. Peace.